Okay, we're rolling.
Okay. All right, ready?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to call this administration committee meeting to order at 5:30 on Wednesday, September the 8th, 2021. And roll call. John?
Excuse me, here.
Okay, and Andra? Oh, she must have phased out.
Wow, she
I
sounds
think
so
she
good
I
too.
know she's here.
Yeah, she's here. Okay, well, it looks like maybe she's dialing in, so
Okay.
actually, she looks like she's frozen.
Okay, and Mary, I am here. I would like to amend the agenda to move the citizens' comments to the end, because I know that a lot of people want to discuss that issue of short-term rentals. So, and I have something to say before they start, just kind of a little history. Does anybody have any informational items? John or Andra?
No, nothing here, Mary.
Okay. All right. I'd like to move that we approve the special meeting minutes of August 11th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Andra?
I think she's dialing in, so she
Okay.
can't hear us at the moment.
Okay, and Mary, I'll vote yes. Okay, we have no old business, new business. John, you want to take the first one?
I'm trying, man. I'm trying to pull my agenda up now. I'm having trouble.
Okay. Okay, then I'll,
Maybe- Go ahead.
Andrea, you there? Okay. I move that, make a motion to recommend the town council reappoint the following members to the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission for a 2-year term ending October 31st, 2023.
Second,
There a second?
second.
Andra?
She's just
Sorry,
coming
I'm
in now.
trying to call in. I'm
Yeah.
having trouble here. So
Okay.
frustrating. My apologies.
Okay,
Okay, we can hear you now, Andra. We're voting on the reappointment of the wetland members.
Okay, yes.
okay. And I
Okay.
just wanted to say that the reappointed members were endorsed by their town committees, and the commission chairs have acknowledged that they all have excellent attendance records. Okay, Andrea, you want to take the second one? Number 2,
Wait,
Yes.
okay,
Nope,
Mary,
I think I'm good now.
you and John have to vote, Mary. Andra said yes.
okay. I say yes, vote yes, Mary. John?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Okay. Rio.
All right. So we're on motion number 2.
Yes,
Yes.
under new business,
I make-
yes.
I make a motion to reappoint Mr. Marcelle Wood, Democrat, 11 South Glenwoods Road, Gale Ferry, to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term ending October 31, 2024.
Second,
Okay, again, Mr. Wood was endorsed by the Democratic Town Committee and received an excellent attendance record from the chair of Planning and Zoning. So all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Counselor Ingalls, aye.
Okay, McGrattan, aye. Okay, so that takes care of the appointments. Okay, so the next issue is number 3. It's discuss and review ordinance number 300-030, an ordinance regulating short-term rentals in the town of Ledyard relative to no permit, formal complaints, possible amendments, and action to extend the ordinance. Before we open it up for citizens, I would like to read sort of a background on this from what I remember, because we're going back a couple of years. I had correspondence today that I found that goes back to April the 9th, 2019, and even earlier than that. Back then, we had many discussions at earlier administration committee meetings about the short-term rentals. Residents were concerned about noise, garbage, parking, too many people in two small houses. We listened and tried to compromise, but finally decided to go with what we had and put a sunset clause in so we could revisit the ordinance after it was in effect for 2 years. And that date is February the 26th, 2022. Fast forward until this August, when a blatant violation was brought to our attention. There may have been some glitches along the way, but not enough to cause action to be taken. So this is what the information I have to date. There are 5 homes that have been permitted to run STRs. One needs to renew their application. We have 5 homes that have no permits. Letters of request for voluntary compliance have been sent, but there has been no follow-up. When we were discussing the ordinance back in 2019, we never thought about permitted not compliance as a result, we did not include a penalty phase for that part of the ordinance. We hope to rectify that. We have talked to Police Chief Rich, and he gave us a list of calls that they responded to, and only a few were noise complaints. Up until now, staffing has been a problem. We now have a new land use director, and we are still without a permanent zoning enforcement officer. I'm happy to report that the mayor has appointed Mike Cherry as a temporary zoning enforcement officer, which includes he is now the designated short-term rental enforcement official. Mike is a former chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission and has been involved in land use for many years. He starts Tuesday, September the 14th. Okay, so if anybody would like, any resident would like to make some comments, now is the time.
I think Pam should go first, Mary. I just read her letter and I think she should go first.
Pam? Is that
Pam,
what
that would be me.
Okay, Pam, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my letter and taking my call and for all the work you guys do. I'm just listening to, like you said, the background, and I was certainly there along most of the way on that. For me, where I stand as a homeowner in a little residential neighborhood, I'm just experiencing a lot of stress and strain here and frustration. I just don't believe this ordinance is working as it's written. And as a homeowner, I'm left without any kind of recourse when operators violate that ordinance. I feel like the town has created a nightmare, building basically a hotel zone in my neighborhood. And from Sunday to Thursday, it's Saturday night. No one is enforcing those regulations. I'm not getting any response. I do appreciate hearing we're going to have an enforcement officer. I did also notice in your agenda some edited amendments to that ordinance, which I highly encourage looking into. I feel that if it's not amended, to really create strict penalties, some kind of enforcement for sure, we're just going to be left here basically holding the weight of living amongst these experiences. I'm just trying to look at my notes here. I did not get that person's name. He said his name was Mike, the temporary zoning enforcement officer.
Mike Cherry.
Cherry? Okay.
Cherry, as in the fruit, cherry.
Sorry, yep, okay, great. And I don't know, even if we report these things, right now as it stands, what can be done? What is done? I'm just frustrated, and I know I'm not alone, and a lot of my neighbors have just given up because our concerns are going unanswered. And I've even put myself in harm's way, just, trying to speak up and speak out. And it's an uncomfortable situation, and I appreciate being heard, and I really do hope something is done about it. Thank you.
Pam, what is your address?
I'm at 62 Long Pond Road South in
Okay,
Ledyard.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak?
Yeah, I'll go next, Mary. Jim Harwood.
Okay,
I agree with everything Pam said. We're having the very same situation here with the 6 Esca Drive, illegal bed and breakfast or whatever you want to call it, hotel. Everything she said is exactly what we're doing. She's been dealing with it about a year longer than us, but we're just as frustrated with these. I sent in a list of suggestions on the ordinance that I see it's been posted. I would encourage you to look at it and see what I've written. I tried to be as unemotional about it as I could in making those changes. Let me just say a few things. I'm not totally against having these short-term rentals in certain portions of the town. They're along the major highways, Route 12, 117. There may be a situation where they're appropriate in areas where you have a combination of commercial and also residential places like you have in Aspen or something like that. It may make perfect sense to have one there. It doesn't make any sense at all to have it in a residential area that's basically a bedroom community where children are running across the street to play with their friends, after school and that. And you've got cars from the bed and breakfast going up and down the street. So I would suggest one thing that you need to do is restrict what types of properties can be used. The second thing is, I think that there's a real problem with having these non-hosted. The host isn't there, nobody's there. What we've noticed here with the 6 Esca Drive is they'll rent to 6 or 8 people, and then a bus will show up with 30 more. And next thing you have 30 or 40 people sitting on a deck, screaming and yelling, drunk as skunks. And on the 5th, for example, they were still partying at 4:30 in the morning. That's just totally unacceptable. The other thing is that Pam mentioned, the enforcement and penalties that you mentioned too, Mary. You've got to address that. You have to enforce this somehow, and there have to be penalties. You can't just say in there's no trespassing allowed without having a penalty for it. They say, oh, well, I'm over urinating in the neighbor's yard. What can he do? And that sort of thing. That just has to stop. And so if you have somebody who has decided they're not going to obey the rules, and they're not going to get a permit, the consequences of that should be that they cannot get a subsequent permit. Once you identify it, and then they fill out the application, and you just should deny it because they've already demonstrated they're willing to not adhere to the rules. That's the first thing. The second thing is, once they have a permit and it's clear that they're not following the rules, there ought to be a mechanism where you can revoke this that's written down, and not just say, well, if there's a lot of noise, a lot of times we can revoke it. I listed in that thing, just as a starting point for discussions, 5 complaints, and you send them a letter saying that you're at risk of having it revoked. And if they don't listen and they have 3 more complaints, you revoke it. They can't reapply for 6 months. After that 6 months, if they reapply and they get it, then if they have it revoked a second time, then they cannot ever have another permit. That's what I would say. You need to have something in there that has some teeth. Otherwise, you're going to have people like Pam was dealing with and like what we're dealing with. They say the town can't do anything. I read in Pam's thing, the other thing that really disturbed me is I read in Pam's letter, it sounded like the police have had so many requests for police to come out for problems that they aren't coming out anymore. Now, you guys are telling us that our first line of defense here is to call the cops, get a record, call the cops. But then if they're not going to come out, then what's our first line of defense here? So I'm as perplexed as Pam is for this. And I've talked to probably 8 or 10 people on Esca Drive and a few people over on Seabury about the 6 Esca Drive one, and they're just as frustrated. And I think a lot of them are going to be talking at the town council meeting today. But anyway, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Jim. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I saw Fred. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Truster, go ahead.
I'm happy to go after
No,
Eric.
sorry.
Can't hear you. You're muted.
Fred can go first if he wishes.
No, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, thank you. First of all, my congratulations to Mike Cherry for volunteering for the world's most difficult job. I wore that hat for several weeks, many years ago. And it's not resume enhancing and nobody loves the zoning enforcement officer. So anyhow, so I give an A+ for that. As you know, I was critical of the ordinance when it was being proposed a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And my attitude has not changed. What we have learned in the meantime is that the Airbnb companies are pushing legal actions against regulations that they deem as overly restrictive. So caution is warranted. Over 40% of the short-term rentals in New York City are illegal because their ordinances and their ordinances cannot. I'm not saying that they're not being enforced. They cannot be enforced. There's just not enough manpower, too many violations, and they're overwhelmed. And that's true in several other cities also. If we ban them entirely, I suspect we'll be sued. I would like to suggest that our land use attorney take a look at a couple of ideas. And Juliet, I know that Juliet's watching tonight also. She might have an idea on this. The enabling statutes for zoning are very clear that the town has the authority through its zoning commission, through its planning and zoning commission, to designate which areas of town can be used for different purposes. It's in the enabling statutes. It's very black and white. And commercial districts, residential districts, design districts, industrial districts, recreational districts, and so forth. And the towns have the authority to do that. So if we exercise that authority, the Airbnb companies will have to penetrate that law before they can successfully sue, in my opinion, which makes it difficult. The other advantage is that, in my opinion, short-term rentals are illegal under the existing zoning regulations because they are not, because if it's the only use of a house, then it is not an accessory use. And while accessory uses are allowed by right, it's not an accessory use unless it's incidental and customarily and low level, which is not the case. In many cases, it's the principal use. So in my opinion, under the existing zoning regulations, short-term rentals are simply not allowed in Ledyard, in single-family dwellings. So what I'd like to suggest is that Juliet and perhaps Carl Landolina, our land use attorney, consider the following idea. If our zoning regulations do, however, allow rooming houses in single-family dwellings, as long as the owner of the house resides in the home. And we've never had a problem with rooming houses in Ledyard. Similarly, short-term rentals are never a problem if they're hosted. So I would like to suggest that if in order to, I would like to see them prohibited everywhere, but I don't think I'm going to prevail on that argument. But perhaps we can insist that short-term rentals be hosted, which means the homeowner has to be living in that home and must be present when the home is being rented out on a short-term rental basis. That will solve about 99% of the problems. I believe it's legal, and and it's clearly within the scope of zoning. The other advantage of using zoning instead of an ordinance is that the police do not get involved. A complaint is filed, the zoning enforcement officer goes out, takes a photograph, whatever the problem is, records the noise, whatever it is, and issues a notice of violation or possibly a cease and desist order. If a cease and desist order is ignored, if you go far enough, you go to jail. It's in the statute. It is possible to go to jail, go to prison, if you ignore a cease and if you intentionally ignore a cease and desist order. It's a lot of work, takes to do it, but it is possible. We can also impose the zoning citations of $100 per day type of thing. So there's lots of options. Also, if a ZEO decision to enforce the zoning regulations is taken, it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that happens fairly quickly, not immediate, but it's often faster than the court system. If a Zoning Board of Appeals rules negatively for the property owner, then they go to court. But nevertheless, the system is well defined, a lot of horsepower, enabling statutes allow it, and I think it should be given serious weight. And I know that some people disagree with me on this, but I think it's worth poking and probing to see what can be done. So that's my input. In Georgia, there are state bills that are pending that will prohibit short-term rentals in single-family residential neighborhoods. We can do the same thing in our zoning. We can say no short-term rentals in residential zones. Short-term rentals are only allowed in commercial zones or in design districts or in recreational districts, but not in residential districts. We can do it, and I think it would work. We have options. We need to be a little bit careful because the companies are anxious to sue. They're not anxious, but they will not hesitate to sue us. And but I think we can throw up some blockades that will make it very difficult, especially based upon the enabling statute, which allows for towns to control the use of land within the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, Fred, would you like to say something?
Sure, thank you. So Mr. Harwood did send over some pictures of his adjacent home, not his home, but the home at issue up there on Esca. I think it's a great example of what's not working with short-term rentals. There were probably 15 to 20 cars in the driveway, on the grass, and in the road. Those are the types of issues we definitely have to deal with. Ms. Bartlett's concerns over on Long Pond Road, same type of thing, except an even narrower road. So thinking about things like emergency vehicle access when cars are parked all over those roads that of course don't meet our design criteria, it imposes a huge issue if there's a fire further up the road. So it's something that we need to be prepared to deal with. I would say in defense of what we've done with the short-term ordinance, we were kind of on the leading edge of these. We did not have the benefit at the time of being able to have that 2020 vision and looking back on other people's ordinances to see what works and what doesn't. Even in places like San Diego, California, they are just now passing a short-term rental ordinance in a place like San Diego. So I think we're going to have the benefit of being able to look at a lot more examples that probably have more appeal for us and will work better for us. We still will have to follow Connecticut general statutes in terms of fining. And anytime you have fining, you also have an appeal process. So we have to allow the offender the right to appeal. So we will have to have a group that is prepared to hear the appeal as well. The idea of hosted only short-term rentals isn't a bad idea. I myself traveled to Iceland this summer. I stayed in 3 of them. All 3 of them were in fact hosted in one way or another, where the owner occupied each of those structures. I'm not opposed to short-term rentals at all, but I think there is a way that we can do it better. And I think we've learned over the last couple of years what can and cannot work. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to sharpen up what we've got and improve upon the process. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on
If
any issue?
if I could, Mary, before
Yes,
Julia
go
jumps
ahead.
in.
Yes,
I heard Eric recommend zoning's the way to go because we can get out there and take care of everything. But before that, I heard Jim say most of his problems occur Thursday night through Sunday night. We don't have a
Mhm.
zoning official Thursday night through Sunday night. Our zoning official works during the week, not on weekends and not at night. So that may be the way to go, but it will require more resources. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just something to think about. How do you get somebody from zoning out at night or on a weekend? Thank you.
overtime.
Mary Pam Bartlett also has her hand up.
I'm sorry, I can't see from.
Okay, yeah, Pam Bartlett has her hand.
That was just an accidental button push on my part. But I do agree, a lot of the times my issue here, and it's very noticeable, everything happens after office hours. After Ledyard Town is closed, that's when the party starts around here. So if the police don't respond, it's either we are self-defending here or tolerating it or, you know, just dealing with it. So it's certainly an issue, and I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Juliet, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I agree with Eric that it belongs in zoning because you have much more. I mean, you just have a well process. You've got the option for fine. You have the option right up to jail, like you said. We all are familiar with the process. It does take longer sometimes, depending on your attorney. I don't think it matters if it happens at night as long as there's evidence that you know, the statute, or not the statute, the regulation is somehow being violated. I mean, residents can provide those pictures and provide a video of noise. I mean, you don't have to be there to witness it. You can verify a violation. You know, ordinances, they work well if they have excellent enforcement provisions, but this is a tough one because you're going to get a lot of people that they're just not going to turn in an application. They're not going to respond. They're owned by holding companies. I don't even know who they are or where they are. So I do agree that you might be better off putting it into zoning.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this or any other issue? Okay, well, I thank all of you for offering your thoughts, and I look forward to working with our new zoning enforcement officer and others with our committee to try to come up with a workable or better working solution. Again, we went in blind, but we thought it was better to just go try it and see. And so we have seen, and now we know where the flaws are. So I thank you all for coming and speaking.
Thank
Okay,
you.
is there a, I'm sorry. Anybody, anything else? Okay, I move that we adjourn. Andra, John?
Yep, motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
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 Good night and thank all of you.
How do we get
Thank you.
zoning meetings this short?
Huh?
We need to get zoning meetings this short. Great.
You should go to land use meetings.